What's up everybody, my name is the Holy Apple and welcome to a new video. So as per last week, I basically did a video on explaining going from beginner to the top 0.1% on what they actually mean, kind of like skill flaws in a way. So this video and the next video alongside it is going to be how to get to these levels. Obviously I can't talk for the top 1%, but I can kind of give you guidance up to the experience point and then what I'm doing to get into the quote-unquote top 10%. So this video is just going to be from when you start Destiny as a blueberry / new player and going all the way up to experienced, what kind of goals you should be setting for yourself and how you can achieve that kind of skill level. Please note that this is not a newbie guide. I will be bringing that out in a later date because this is just going over goals that you can be set so you can actually achieve these higher skill levels. So first and foremost, as a new player, you will be wanting to look at doing things like strikes. So your first and primary goal will be just getting used to the game. A good goal will be finishing a strike with, I'd say, less than 3 deaths to start with, and then slowly whittling it down to you just doing strikes over and over again without dying. That seems like a really good starting point. On the flip side, with PvP and Crucible, I'm assuming you're not going to go straight into Trials because that is just going to be suicide. But in Crucible, you are going to get slapped a lot by experienced players and people know how to use the guns in the game. So don't worry too much about starting in PvP if you're getting slapped about. It is perfectly normal. But a good kind of goal for the entire season that you start would be to try and get a positive KD across the entirety of it. I might as well mention Gambit because it is there, and I reckon some players are going to really enjoy playing Gambit. So with Gambit, I think your first goal is just getting used to how the game actually works. But some goals that you could set for Gambit could be things like not dying when you're running through, trying to get a set amount of moat spanks when you're playing the game. When you try to invade across, try and get a set amount of Guardians. That could also be another goal. But something that will probably be a very good idea to kind of guide you towards goals would be the Dredgen title. It's not exactly a difficult title to get when you really think about it and play Gambit enough. So perhaps like tune your experience to try and get in that title, and then you can just like kind of fill in the skill gaps as you go. I say after you've done one of the 3 criteria I've just mentioned, you're probably going into the casual kind of territory. So you've had enough experience at the game. So now you should be looking at Nightfall strikes, which are basically the amped difficulty for the strikes. They can be run at Adept, Hero, Legend, Master, and Grandmaster. So I'd probably just go run through Adept versions to start with, just so you get an idea of how it works. Especially with now the addition of champions, you're going to want to know how to actually deal with the champions when it comes to stunning them with anti-barrier mods, overload mods, unstoppable mods, all that kind of stuff. This will be a good learning curve to try and understand how to deal with that whilst keeping the difficulty relatively low as you're learning it. So I'd say from here, you're probably more than likely looking towards getting a 100k score on the Nightfalls, because this is actually a pinnacle reward, so a lot of players do this weekly just to get the pinnacle reward. It will be a very good goal for you to try and strive to start getting that every single week. But also know that not all the Nightfall strikes can be done to 100k on Hero. Some of them will require you to go on Legend, which, to be honest, if you can solo a Legend Nightfall, then you're already in the experience bracket as far as I'm concerned, because it's not exactly easy to do it. You have to build your loadout in a certain way to actually deal with everything that you're going to face. But at the same time, if you don't have a fire team to do it with, you're kind of stuck in the middle. By this point as well, if you're comfortable dealing with strikes, I'd say you're probably going to be comfortable dealing with most of the activities that are available in Destiny now. So if you take the Witch Queen DLC, for example, the Wellspring, you should be able to fly through it. Current seasonal stuff with Season of the Haunted, you should be able to fly through that and the story to go along with it if you bought the Season Pass. But again, falling into the little trap that is known as you need a fire team for most of the activities, something you should be looking at now is dungeons and completing them for the first time. So at the moment of recording this video, there is a total of 5 dungeons in the game, which is the Prophecy Dungeon, the Pit of Heresy, Shattered Throne, the Grasp of Avarice, which is part of the 30th anniversary bundle pack, and the Duality Dungeon, which is part of the new dungeon pass that Bungie recently released. But provided that you haven't done any of the DLC or you haven't bought a season pass, you should at least have the Prophecy Dungeon available to you, because as far as I'm aware, that's the only free one. But you still will need a fire team of 3 to do it, because it is a fairly challenging encounter, especially if you're doing it for the first time. There are plenty of guides online how to actually deal with the Prophecy Dungeon, so by all means read into it before you go and attempt it, but it's definitely a good starting point getting into the end game kind of content. As another side note, it is also around the time that you should be looking to max out your light level, so if you haven't done this already, so if you're looking for any kind of activities that reward powerful engrams or trying to get prime engrams where you can, to get your light level up to the max level cap, and then you'll be looking at the pinnacle activities to get up to your pinnacle cap. So this could be your next goal if you think about it. Try to strive towards the max power level for that season. Your season pass will come naturally, so I wouldn't really class that as a goal to get. But something else that you could also set aside would be the likes of trying to find a build that works for you. So I'm not necessarily saying go on YouTube and find the best hunter build or best titan build, etc. I literally mean find out a build that works for you and how you play. You can obviously take a build that already exists and it's online. Everyone says, "Oh, this is so powerful," but you will always find some sort of disconnect with it because it's not how you play. Like a very good example is a lot of people are currently obsessed with well builds, whereas my hunter at the minute I use all power still. I'm a massive fan of what they can actually provide to you as opposed to building a class that uses wells. And at this point, you should be somewhere between casual and experienced, so I would highly recommend you start looking for an LFG to join. I don't mean the Destiny 2 main LFG, I mean an actual clan that does daily raids, daily dungeon runs, activity helps, things like that. And the reason I say this is because this will allow you to do one of the endgame content, which are raids. And this is going to be your next goal step. So at this point, I'm assuming you've not cleared a raid, but you've managed to do a dungeon run or two with some friends or other people that you've found in the LFG groups. Now is the time to start doing a raid. And the reason I say this is because a raid encounter is so different to what you've previously experienced before. It requires a lot more planning and coordination with your team, and it requires a lot more communication as well. Even the easier raids like Vault of Glass, for example, will still require a great deal of communication, especially if you've not done it for the first time. Which is why I also advise that you join an LFG with Sherpas in it, so they can guide you through the raid and they will be patient with you as they do it. At this point as well, on the Crucible side, you should be looking at trying to go into Trials of Osiris, which is like the pinnacle of PvP is what I've heard it been called numerous times. The reason for this is because they reward special weapons that you won't get anywhere else in the game. So things like Igneous Hammer, Aisha's Embrace, basically the fancy looking weapons with the golden eyes on it, or the fancy armor that looks Egyptian. But fair warning, if you do go into Trials of Osiris, there is a lot of players in there that have been playing since Destiny 1, and they will just wipe through you regardless. But that's not the point. The point is that you get actual experience when you're doing it and you get used to 3-on-3 combat. There is obviously a Crucible game mode where you can do a 3v3 elimination match, so that is also an alternative to Trials if you don't want to go against that, but there's not going to be the same rewards in it, so it's down to you if you want to do that or not. You should also be looking out for Iron Banner when it comes swinging around, provided it's not Rift, because that is just a shambles of a game mode. But from more of a PvE perspective, you should be looking more towards going into Nightfalls on Master and above, so Masters and Grandmasters basically. And the reason I say that is because there are Nightfall weapons that you can get which are going to be great rewards if you can get the right rolls on them. Not to mention, if you're a bit of a collectionist like most of the community is, then you'll be wanting to get your hands on the Adept weapons which can only drop from Grandmasters. And just as a quick note, no, don't worry about trying to solo a Grandmaster. That is not for the faint of heart, and a lot of experienced players, even the top 1%, may struggle from time to time. But provided you've done everything that I've just said, you are technically now an experienced player because you've done raids, you've done dungeons, you've done Nightfalls to Grandmaster or Master, you've done Trials of Osiris, you've now pretty much explored the game in its entirety, and you are set on your ways on knowing what you need to do to get to that next level. But what is that next level, I hear you asking? Well, that is the top 10%, and I don't want this video to go on for too long, so I'm stopping it here. But going from experience to top 10% is going to be what I'm going to discuss in next week's video, so tune in for that. But thank you very much for watching, or listening, I suppose, and I will just hopefully see you next week.